Despite the many faults of the WWE 2K series, and particularly the WWE 2K25 video game, I think WWE 2K25 may have given us one of the most stacked rosters ever. But can we improve off of that? After plenty of departures including Cora Jade, Baron Corbin, Indy Hartwell, Wes Lee, and more, WWE 2K26 is sure to get rid of some of those characters and take them out of the game from WWE 2K25. So going into WWE 2K26, who are some of those names that can replace those stars? There are obviously plenty of new stars in the WWE landscape, so I thought, why not compile a short list of some of those names that can join WWE 2K26 with some WWE 2K26 roster predictions. Now, I do think a lot of these are pretty straightforward, pretty guaranteed, so let me know what you think of some of these names down below, and let me know if I missed any names or there are any names that you would like to see in WWE 2K26. Like the video if you enjoy it, subscribe for more videos like this in the future on WWE and WWE 2K games, and I already made a video predicting WWE 2K26's DLC roster pretty early, including the likes of the Hardys, Joe Hendry, and plenty more new and legendary stars in the world of wrestling, so if there's someone I'm missing on this list, I might have included them in that video instead. I'll kick things off with some NXT names, but I'll leave some timestamps down below because I will cover some NXT names, main roster names, and a couple of legends that I figure could get added to the game. We'll start with some of those bigger names in the likes of Blake Monroe and Ricky Saints. I feel it is very necessary that these two get in the game coming over from AEW. Ricky Saints, who at the time of recording is your NXT champion, and Blake Monroe, who at the time of recording is your Women's North American champion, and two stars who made huge debuts in NXT in 2025 that I think going into 2K26's base game roster are necessities to include, like Ethan Page, Jordan Grace, and more were last year. I also have the 4 members of Dark State. I included them as honorable mentions in my DLC video because I think no matter where they end up, they have to be in the game. I prefer base game, simply because they have been 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions, and Dion Lennox particularly debuted, I think 2 or 3 years ago at this point, so they have been around for plenty long enough, debuting officially for NXT as a group in February of 2025. They have been around for long enough and made enough of an impact to be included in WWE 2K26, and I think all 4 would be pretty fun to play as. The rest of the names on my list for NXT are kind of just names that probably should have been in WWE 2K25, but for some reason didn't make it, and I think can just be slotted into the 2K26 roster. While I'll include everyone as a cohesive unit, we will start with someone individually, and that is Jasmine Nix, simply because Jasmine Nix was around for long enough to be in 2K25. However, she just wasn't, and ended up leaving the company in September of 2025. I think it is possibly too late to pull her out of the game, but I think she is also a small enough name that she could just slip through the cracks and make it to WWE 2K26 like many people have in the past. So I think it is possible that Jasmine Nix could make her video game debut and probably her last WWE video game, but I think it is also possible that she could just be cut from the game. The rest of the names on my list include the families Luca Crucifino and Adriana Rizzo, Ariana Grace, OTM's Lucian Price and Bronco Nima, Culling's Izzy Dame, No Quarter Catch Crew / formerly No Quarter Catch Crew because they are now single stars, but Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights, Tank Ledger and Hank Walker, who made a huge impact as Stand and Deliver, dethroning Fraxium for the NXT Tag Team Championships, Carmen Petrovic, who has been around for a year or two now and I think could be a pretty fun star to play as in the game, and finally Zarya, who was a huge signing for the company last year but did not make it into the DLC alongside big names like Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, who debuted around a very similar time period. And those are my NXT names. I think your names that you want to look at and definitely include into base roster are Blake Monroe, Ricky Saints, Hank and Tank, and potentially Dark State. I think a lot of the rest of the names are just cool additions, but not really the biggest names that need to be included. I just think it would be very nice to have all of those names into the base roster of 2K26. And I'll make a very, very small segment for Legends here because I really don't know how they go about doing Legends anymore. So the 2 names I will start off with are Ted DiBiase and Big Boss Man, who were in 2K24, I believe, but cut from 2K25 and have since re-signed Legends deals. So I think it is very likely that these 2 names can just be thrown back into the game after being unceremoniously cut from WWE 2K25. And the third name I have for my Legends list is Lana. I don't think she has made nearly enough of an impact as either a wrestler or a manager to warrant being a selling point for a DLC pack, so I think including Lana alongside another name that I'll get into in my main roster names, just as a unlockable manager, would be pretty cool, because she has appeared in Tops and I believe WWE Supercard since Rusev's return to the WWE. And the rest of the legendary editions, I think, are very dependent on the modes of this game, such as My Rise, Island, and Showcase mode. For My Rise, Island, and Showcase, we got the likes of DDP in his older era, as well as Alundra Blaze in her older era. Showcase, we got the likes of Haku, Tama, the Wild Samoans, and more. And Island, we got the likes of Goldberg, Nikki Bella, and some retro versions of current day superstars. So I think it all depends on the modes we're getting, and I think it is possible that if we get, for example, a Randy Orton showcase, we could get a Cowboy Bob Orton, or, for example, a CM Punk showcase, potentially a Jeff Hardy or an AJ Lee or something like that. But I think the rest of the legendary names are simply dependent on the rest of the modes. And for the main roster names, I'm going to start with some of the less exciting ones and get to some of the more exciting ones, but we will kick things off with the Americanos. I think it is possible that Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and Ludwig Kaiser stay in the game, or just simply get replaced by Rayo, Bravo, and El Grande Americano number 2, I'll call him, because it's not the same person as the first El Grande Americano. So I think it is possible that we could have Ludwig, we could have Pete Dunne, we could have Tyler Bate, we could have El Grande Americano, and then we can also have Rayo, Bravo, and El Grande Americano number 2. The next one is also kind of just a reskin of Natalya. I think it would be very cool to have Natty Neidhart in these games, and I talked about in my DLC video how I want Natty in a game, but I don't want her as a DLC star. I want her in the game, so I think a cool way to include her would be through the My Rise potentially, and including Natty as a alternate attire or model for Natalya. Maybe your character goes through the dungeon or something, and you have to train with Natalya or something like that. If you don't know Natty Neidhart is kind of a different persona for Natalya that has appeared in AAA and other companies, Bloodsport and NWA, but she is now seemingly using that on TV as well in her Maxine Dupree story, so I think it would be very cool to include that, and I think that would be a nice addition to the game. And the next 2 new names are signings from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Those are JC Mateo and Tala Tonga, who are members of the MFTs. I think it would just be nice to include them, and I think they have been around plenty long enough, Backlash and Night of Champions respectively, in May and June respectively, that they should be included in a base game like Tama Tonga and Tangaloa were last year. I think it is very likely that they make it into the game. And then someone I already mentioned, Rusev, who I believe appeared on the Raw after WrestleMania a couple days before Aleister Black, but Rusev didn't make it into 2K25 like Aleister did. But Rusev, I do think, definitely makes it into 2K26, potentially alongside Lana, and potentially alongside some of these other names that crossed over from AEW or TNA or New Japan in the past year or so as new signings. Before I get to my final name, I think we will see the likes of Brock Lesnar, hopefully in some ring gear, and Aleister Black and Penta and all those names that appeared in the DLC and the extra content for 2K25, I think we will see them back in 2K26. But the final name for the 2K26 roster, and I think the most exciting name looking at all these names on here, Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix is going to be so fun to play as, just like Penta is. And I honestly can't wait to get Rey Fenix in one of these games. I think he will be fantastic to play as, either as a single star or alongside Penta, who, as I said, is already in the games through WWE 2K25's DLC, and he is another name that crossed over from AEW, debuting for the WWE this year. So out of all those names, whether they be Legends, NXT Stars, or current day roster members, who are you most excited for in WWE 2K26, and who would you like to see most, whether they're on my list or not? Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more WWE 2K content in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.